Anthony in an article in the Chicago Sun-Times. I've also put a link up in the sidebar. 87% of arrested men tested positive for illegal drugs at the time of their arrests. And from this, you conclude a causal relationship between drugs and crime. And as usual, it seems that you've started with your conclusion and worked backwards to find an interpretation that fits. So, firstly, let's talk about drugs and crime. There definitely seems to be a link between organised crime and drugs, but the most obvious explanation for that link is prohibition. We've got two factors to consider here. The first is that a lot of people use drugs recreationally, so there is high demand. The second factor is that many of these substances have been declared illegal. And if you put high demand with restricted availability, you end up with people willing to pay a high price. That's simple economic market forces. The fact that most of these drugs are pretty cheap to produce in the first place means that there is an enormous profit margin, which is a great marketing opportunity. And because it's illegal, the people who take advantage of this marketing opportunity are criminals, both technically because what they're doing is breaking the law, but also because they're the kind of people who really don't mind breaking the law. We're talking about huge amounts of money here, and that usually means that people's ethics go flying out of the window pretty easily. Even devout, born-again Christians have been known to mount illegal wars if the amount of money involved is high enough. Secondly, take a look at the article. A quick copy and paste of this item into MS Word gave me a count of 123 words. That's hardly an in-depth scientific analysis. You're reinterpreting what's written here to support your argument. Again. You state that the article doesn't say people arrested for drugs, but talks about those arrested. Read the article again. It says no such thing. It doesn't mention why these people were arrested at all. Christians are often defending, quote, mined from the Bible by saying, you have to look at this in context. So where's your context here? If police are targeting suspected drug users as part of some Get Tough on Drugs campaign, then it's not going to be too surprising that a large number of people arrested test positive for drugs. Another example would be that if people concentrate their efforts on apprehending speeding motorists, the figures will show that the majority of people arrested were speeding. Context. It works both ways. Let me refer to another article that I think presents some much more interesting crime figures. I'll put a link to this up in the sidebar. It's a 2006 article from The Times. Now this article describes correlation between religious belief and sex crime, particularly those sex crimes against children. This article goes into far more detail than the sometimes soundbite that you're referring to, and it makes a pretty strong case that sex crime and religion go, to coin a phrase, hand in hand. I find it quite interesting that we don't hear the conservative, religious, moral majority making a big song and dance about that. I'm not going to deal with your analysis of what the Bible says about sobriety. I've already explained my position on quote mining and selective interpretation to fill in the gaps. And frankly, I couldn't care what the Bible says about drug use any more than I care what it says about space travel, or whether I can wear a wool coat that has cotton thread holding the seams together. Instead, I'm going to focus on the social theme of your video and say that if you're worried about people being messed up and having messed up thought processes, if you're worried about people having impaired mental judgment, then that book you keep referring to, and its siblings, do far more harm to humanity than all of the other drugs put together. And when it comes to protecting your fellow citizens from crime, in particular the safety of children, the evidence seems to suggest that we should be more concerned about ensuring that no one religious is allowed near a child than whether that child comes into contact with somebody who uses drugs.